everyone. Welcome to the Unmiss Podcast, your ultimate guide to mastering digital strategy and marketing innovation. At Unmiss, we're all about providing actionable tools and technology that help you optimize your SEO, boost content performance, and stay ahead of the digital curve. Each episode, we sit down with industry leaders in the digital marketing and SEO realm to uncover the tools, trends, and techniques shaping the online world. Unmiss offers a plethora of advanced SEO tools to help streamline work, such as detecting AI content, link building, keyword optimization, and so much more. Head to unmissed.com to check those out. I'm Chelsea Alves, and I'll be hosting today's discussion. I'm super excited to have the opportunity to speak with Rob today. Rob is the founder of Spoken Life Media, LLC, host of Podcast Tips with Rob Greenlee, live streamed every Thursday, sorry about that, at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Rob Greenlee Channels, and host of Spoken Life Show and co-founder advisor of PodcastEZ.com. Rob, thank you again for joining us today. Can you give our audience just a little bit of your professional background before we go ahead and dive deeper into the questions I have for you?
Yeah, I guess since we're going to be talking about podcasting, really my background is all about creating audio. I started on the radio many, many years ago. It's been 20 years now for me in the podcasting side, and I've worked for a lot of different software companies over the years, like um, Microsoft, Xbox. Yeah, I worked on the early Zune platform, which was a competitor to the iPod, and kind of ran that for Microsoft for about 7 years, and then I moved on and worked for Podcast One, which is a large podcast kind of network platform, uh, and helped build that in the early days of the podcasting medium back in 2014. And then I've worked for a bunch of podcast hosting platforms, the top probably three or four of the top ones in the world. So have had a lot of experience as a content creator, have worked in a lot of different jobs and roles over my span of my career. Actually, I started in the grocery business and I actually owned a restaurant very early in my career as well. So I've done a lot of different things over the years, but really over the last 20 years has really been about online content, online media, content marketing. Really is kind of takes it all and puts it into a bucket. Is really that the online opportunity really has something that's really been a boost to my career and my activities that I've been doing for many years now.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Starting in the grocery and restaurant industry, and then kind of shifting to digital.
Yeah.
As you've said, you've obviously had a very remarkable career spanning decades in podcasting and digital media. How did you first become interested in podcasting, and kind of what drew you to pursue it so passionately?
Well, back when I started, it really wasn't about podcasting. It was really about just creating content on the radio. So I just walked into a radio station up in the Seattle market and started doing a show about the growth and development of the World Wide Web and the internet. So that was the topic of the show. It was called Web Talk Radio, and it was on the XM satellite network. It was on about 15 broadcast stations, and just did it live in a radio stations where I started. And then I eventually took that home and built my own studio in my spare bedroom, and that's what kind of took me down this path. And so that was like 2002 kind of time frame that I took it home and started to make it. I was still on the radio, but I was pre-producing everything for the radio side of things, and it was just something that was brewing, and then podcasting and some precursor platforms were starting to grow and develop. But I was really doing it to help build a kind of a side business that I had at the time, which is helping small businesses get get into the search engines and the directories at the time to take advantage of the online kind of marketing discovery. It was SEO back then. And so that's the reason I did it, was to reach more small businesses in that local community over the radio. Because back then it was all about, radio and television were the big thing back then. It really wasn't about online media. It was an emerging thing. And I mean, back then bandwidth was very tight. There wasn't a lot
Yeah.
of it. And it was a lot of, the whole dial-up modems and things like that. So people were sipping on bandwidth, not drowning in it like we are now.
Right. Yeah, no, it's definitely evolved.
Yeah.
since 2002 to now almost 2025. Thinking, think forward thinking for people who are interested in getting into podcasting or they're already, well into podcasting. What do you foresee being the most significant challenges or opportunities for podcast creators and platforms in 2025?
Yeah, I think it's evolving, and it's been evolving every year for the 20 plus years that I've been involved in the medium. It's not a rocket ship medium. It's actually something that evolves over time, and it's really kind of paralleled what's happened to radio. The the radio side is declining in its overall listenership. At the same time, podcasting is growing its overall listenership. So you can see what's happening. There's a trade-off that's happening where people are getting audio content. They're increasingly getting it via the digital channels or podcasting, more specifically, and it's a generational shift too. So things are moving increasingly that direction. And there's a lot of talk in the industry right now that podcasting and online media has really taken the mantle away from legacy mainstream um, media channels, is where increasing numbers of people are spending their time, and it makes a lot of sense. I mean, all of us have gone digital, and
Hmm.
the whole analog channels are kind of fading into the background. That's not to say that they're going away. It's more to say that the shift in priority that people have with their lives about consuming content is, it's reached a crossing point where it's the dominant method that people gather news and information about the world, and that's through their smartphone or through their computers or their laptops or their tablets. And that's been building for many, many years, and podcasting has rode right along that path. And we've now really, I think podcasting has really grown up. It's really, after 20 years, you would think we would have gotten our stuff together, right? And it's definitely grown internationally. I think you look at across the globe, podcasting is continuing to grow in many markets around the world. In the US, it's fairly mature, but there's still a lot of audience room to grow larger, and we keep growing like maybe 3 or 4% every year. So my calculation is we'll get there eventually. It just takes a
Yeah.
little time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a growing medium. And, just from my own experience, it's something I tend to gravitate towards rather than, listening to traditional radio. I even find myself in the car turning on
Yeah.
podcasts rather than listening to the radio
Yeah,
now.
it's the whole, it's the convenience side of it too.
Hmm.
Radio has been, you turn it on, it's whatever's on,
Yeah.
but now you're in charge. And so as we look to 2025, it's growing and becoming more and more mature, and a lot of those content creators that were in mainstream media, or legacy media, are shifting over to creating their own networks, their own channels on this digital side, and that's causing a lot of changes in the industry too, around the growth and the desire for more video. So that's a lot of the tension in the medium right now. Is it it really appears that the video side of things is where the hot, kind of activity is right now. What people are
Mhm.
really thinking about a lot is, well, okay, I've been doing audio all these years, that's going great, but the younger generation wants to watch more videos on TikTok and all these digital channels and YouTube and those places. And so as content creators, we need to be thinking much more broadly now, and that's where the discussion is shifting more towards not so much about being a podcaster, but being a creator or a content creator. And that encapsulates the concept of podcasting inside of it. But it also opens it up, and it also adds a lot of complexity to a content creator's life to be
Yeah.
able to manage all these platforms and to do it effectively, especially as these big platforms, they're proprietary platforms that, they own their ecosystem, and they want everybody to be uploading directly to them. And
Yep.
because the whole concept of podcasting is based on RSS, which is an open distribution. You publish once and it goes everywhere. Well, that doesn't play into needs or the desires of a large proprietary platform. And so we're seeing kind of a push towards, Spotify is a good example of this, and they want to push people to publish directly to them, and not so much publish into a podcast RSS feed that goes to Apple and goes to YouTube and goes to all their competitors. So that's kind of if you want to kind of encapsulate what's happening as we move into 2025, those are the tensions, but there's a lot of opportunity out there too. It's not like we're done growing.
Right. Yeah. So speaking of, the opportunities and, it, obviously podcasting is getting more crowded than ever as more people realize the potential of this medium.
Mhm.
How can new podcasters differentiate themselves and really build a loyal audience when it is so competitive right now?
Yeah, I think it's really has um, really boiled down to content at this point. I mean, I think having an understanding of the format that will appeal to the potential audience that any kind of a program has is really kind of front and center now, and I think it makes a lot of sense, and then prioritizing platforms that tend to lend to that audience profile, right? So as people thinking about, it's the why. I think we've solved the how. It's the why now takes center stage. Why are we creating content? What are the reasons for that? What are the goals for that? What are we trying to accomplish in our professional careers or our businesses? And also and how that benefits the brands. But it's really um, getting clear on what you're trying to accomplish, because you can't practically, unless you have a big team, do everything and be everywhere. Even though we'd all like to be, um, the complexity of digital distribution now is difficult for one person to manage, and to do it effectively and do it consistently. I think we just, we'd burn out and go curl up in the corner if we tried to live trying to publish to all these platforms and to be everywhere and do everything that has to be done to be successful now. Um, so increasingly, we're seeing people get teams, and people are kind of group going after this and attacking this. But it is probably, as we look to the future, it is very important for any business and any person, personal brand, to be in as many of these platforms as they can, creating regular content. Now, granted, if everybody does that, the level of content goes way up and it becomes even more competitive. So then it's about, like I said earlier, it's really about standing out with your content, creating quality audio, quality video, and making sure that that experience that they're creating for their audience. And I think we're also moving into another phase now of increased interest in having more of a discussion with the audience, it's more of it's like an interactive experience, is increasingly what we're moving to. And also, I think we've seen a lot of efforts around live, which has its own unique challenges. I've been doing a lot with live myself, trying to play around with that format, doing solos, doing interviews, doing all sorts of different formats to see what works. But then there's also, then there's shorts,
Yeah.
and which is a whole nother kind of medium, really. But increasingly, that's being folded into what the needs are of podcasters to do, to tap into what these platforms are doing, and it creates a lot of work. And now we're seeing these platforms that are taking clips from long form content to create the short form content.
Mhm.
And so we're seeing, people are trying to solve this problem of the workload, that exists in being able to be a successful creator now. But the opportunity is huge. I mean, as we are seeing, there are content creators that are extremely highly successful out there, that
Yeah.
are reaching millions of people and having a significant impact far beyond what, anything that the legacy media has had. It's just it's really a remarkable time on that side.
Is there one particular format that you've tested and experienced that is driving more traction over others?
Oh yeah, yeah. That's the eternal question, right? What is
The
the
secret recipe.
the best platform to be on at any
Yeah.
given time? And I would say the hot platform right now has to be YouTube. I mean, I
Mm,
can't, there's a lot of research that's coming out, saying that YouTube's now the number one platform that consumers of content, look to find their new podcast, and that has really rattled the podcasting industry itself, around, rationalizing in their mind the new reality that YouTube is now a podcasting platform when it spent most of its 20 years thinking that YouTube was something completely different. And so it's now, and then now Spotify wants to be more like YouTube. And so they're moving down that path. And that is one of those platforms, like I mentioned earlier, that they want you to upload directly to them. Now, granted, there are RSS pathways into YouTube, but it's all about video, right? Even the RSS pathways for audio into YouTube wind up turning into videos. So it's one of those things that, that's the big kind of, I mean, it's the number two search engine in the world.
yeah.
Um, and that's where people go to find content. And I think it makes perfect sense to me that people are thinking about YouTube increasingly about how to integrate that into their content strategy because it's just such an important platform. Um, yeah,
Yeah, it really is. I mean, YouTube, if I'm not mistaken, is owned by Google,
it
and
is. Yeah.
most people turn to Google to, search for, their topic of interest. So if you want
Hmm.
to build your audience, build your credibility and your authority and boost your SEO, you kind of have to be on YouTube, it seems like, as a
Yeah.
podcaster to, build that audience and, really gain traction, it seems like.
Yep. Yeah. Yet there's a lot of people in the podcast, space that still want to be dedicated audio only,
Yeah.
and some formats, lend, that, better. So it's okay to be an audio only creator. I think now, especially in certain genres, um, and also, what's your commitment, what's your investment ability, what's your time. I mean, if you're trying to create very high quality audio, in a podcast series or in a true crime process, it may be too expensive to take that format and transfer it over as a video format, or it just may be too much time to be able to produce something at equal quality to what you're doing with the audio. And it gets back at the end of the day, what's the ROI on that for people investing in trying to produce a true crime
Yeah.
story series that is a lot less expensive to produce as an audio production, but maybe like double the cost or more to produce as a video experience. So that's the tension in the space, that we're seeing right now. And I think as a content creator, you just have to decide, what's the best medium and the best pathway for you with the type of content that you're making.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Sticking in line and thinking of, emerging like technologies and platforms and tools. One technology that really stands at the forefront for me is AI. I feel like it's infiltrated every single
Oh yeah.
industry and it's a very hot topic right now.
Yeah.
So we haven't really touched on this. How do you envision AI shaping the podcast landscape, or is it already shaping it?
Yeah.
To be honest, I'm not sure. So
Yeah.
I'd love your insight.
Yeah, I mean, as you think about what AI, really effectively does right now, is it creates content, and that fits right into what podcasters want to do. They want to, kind of synthesize content. They want to come up with ideas. They want to, edit content. They want to, and AI is being built to create content as well as, summarize and edit content. So it's actually working at both ends of the ecosystem of content creation right now. Um, it's the middle part, which is the actual production side, that it's still not kind of like fully built out. So both ends, the post production, editing, and processing, and things like that, AI is, starting to really kind of plow a pathway, And in the pre-production side, it can be a great assistance. It's the what's in the middle, right? It's what's typically done by humans is the part that we still haven't really seen fully built out, and there's a lot of consternation about that. I mean, do we want AI to create all of our content? And I think at least in my mind, is that I think that that's like the sand is falling through the hourglass on this.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of time before AI will be able to create content better than humans, and there are glimpses of it that I've seen over the even the last, year or 2, where there's platforms now that will create, full motion video. They'll create, avatar humans that talk and look like they're real people, in all sorts of environments and backgrounds. So you can kind of see where this is going. And then cloning audio is another, taking like my voice or your voice and putting it into these platforms and be able to give it text and have it output, you know, each one of
Yeah.
us saying something that sounds pretty close to us, and it really it's about how much training data that has, but I would think at some point those will sound exactly like us. Now, will it have the same thoughts we have? No, but if you give it what you want it to say, but at some point it's gonna make up its own mind, and how close is it gonna replicate humans is the question that I don't know that we all have the answer to yet. But that's how I look at it right now, is that AI is solving a lot of the content creators' needs right now. But there's a big but on this, and that is I find that when I use it, that I still wanna get in and human edit, what it creates. So it's like a boost in the process, or it comes up with new ideas, or it helps us do things more quickly. I don't know that it 100% does things better. Um, it may do better with grammar or spelling, or, getting those things right. But the actual content, I find I get in there and have to hand edit everything to make it in my voice,
Right.
and to make it more consistent to who I am. It's still not quite good enough for that.
I think that's such a good point that you bring up, though, is not relying solely on AI to, draft your scripts or come up with the questions you're going to ask people. There needs to be like a touch of human element to it.
Yeah.
And so that it sounds authentic and true to you and your voice. Because I think, the issue with AI is if everyone's using AI around the same topics, it's all going to start sounding the same and you're not going to be able to, really maintain your brand voice.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if it starts to make content that's different than how you would actually do it yourself, then that's kind of maybe you're misrepresenting you as a person, until we get to a point where, that AI is kind of in your head and knows how you think. And, that may or may not happen in the future, but I don't know. I'm starting to worry that it is gonna have access to all sorts of sources of information about us, and analyze the content that we make, and learn, how we think and what we think, and what our choices are. But I know, even sitting in front of you doing this episode, I don't know that AI could predict what's going to come out of my mouth.
Right. Yeah, no. Um, so thinking of, it's a fast changing industry. How do you like stay inspired and continue to innovate amid all of that evolution and the fast paced nature of podcasting?
I don't know. I guess it's the same thing that I've always done. It's just kind of look at the market, monitor what's going on, and just keep keep plugging away, each day, and keep learning. I think the key to having energy in any particular endeavor that you want to take on is that you have to have a genuine interest in it, first of all, and it also has to be seen by yourself as, it's something that you enjoy, and it's something that maybe aligns with your desire to have an impact on others, a positive impact, hopefully. And that's what keeps me energized. My whole career has been around really helping other people, other content creators, um, and that's what keeps me energized. Is that you know, content creators typically are amazing people. They're great communicators. They're they have ideas that they want to share with the world, and I've always wanted to be a facilitator of that because I come across so many extremely talented people, far more talented than I am, and it's always a pleasure to help them um, get that personality out there because it can be a very helpful thing for other people.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like, so many people are enjoying podcast consumption and
Yeah.
audio forms of entertainment. So I feel like that in itself is almost motivating, just knowing you're helping others and providing value for them.
Yeah. Right. As best you can. I mean, I can only do so much. I can share ideas and pontificate and kind of look into the future a little bit based on my many years of being in this medium to look at it more from not so much about future predictions, but looking at the evolution of it, right, and the progression of it, and what the next logical kind of processes are coming from what's happened in the past.
So for those, considering a career in podcasting or digital media and just getting started, what skills or qualities do you think are essential for long-term success?
No. Well, increasingly, I'm thinking that it people are baked pretty well with who they are, how they like to think, and how they like to communicate. Trying to change people is an evolutionary thing. I can only point to myself from my own experiences that this has been a 20-year journey for me, going from not doing anything around getting in front of people and being on stage or being in the media or whatever over 20 years. It's taken me that long to really be comfortable in doing this. And there are other people out there that just have innate natural abilities to communicate. It's part of the reason why I think women are taking over the world. It's, and 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 that's exactly what's happening in the podcasting medium too. If you look at
Yeah.
you know a lot of very, very popular hosts out there are women, and women do a terrific job of communication, and that's what this medium is really all about. Um,
Mhm.
and and at the end of the day, that's where I think the skills are is your ability. Increasingly, what's your camera presence? What's your quality of your equipment to some degree? What's the audio experience? What's the visual video experience? Those are all really, really key now. So you have to really think about being a quality creator, and at the same time, quality also gets back to the need for post-production and pre-production, because if you're very, very talented and you're very thoughtful and you're very knowledgeable about whatever you're doing in content, it can streamline that process. And I know that there's been a lot of pressure on in the mainstream media for many years, and that's one of the criteria that they looked for talent would be, the fact of, do you have talent?
Yeah.
Is there do you make this look easy? And I think that is something that's kind of sometimes hard to teach. It comes from just doing and repetition and getting
Mhm.
yourself in a lot of different situations where you have to be able to think on your feet. I think doing an interview like this is a little bit like that, right? So
Yeah, it's true.
over over 20 years of doing this, I've done hundreds of interviews. I've been on television, radio, all this stuff for years, and you just build up a certain amount of confidence. And so my recommendation is to, if you have a burning desire to get involved in being a content creator, then just get out there and start doing it. And you're going to find success based on your development and what your skills are, what your knowledge is, and so all those things have to be worked on, right? And you have to put in the time to actually learn those things. There may be an upper limit to what you're able to reach. That's why we have a different strata of success out there, is that
Yep.
different people have different abilities. And I was a basketball player for many years, myself, a highly competitive basketball player, and I always had the back of mind this realism that there's always somebody better out there.
Yeah.
and and you can't beat yourself up because there's someone better out there. You can't say, well, I'm not as good as him, so why try? What you have to do is you have to be the best you. And then work on those things that you have weaknesses in and get better at those. And then over time, you'll more than likely reach your goals.
Yeah, I think all of that is such excellent advice and such a great way to kind of wrap up this discussion.
Yeah.
Um, so Rob, it's been amazing talking to you today. I honestly think you covered such, you know, gave such great advice and we covered a lot of ground. I'm sure our audience will be interested in learning more from you. Can you share how they could get a hold of you if they have any follow-up questions or want to consume
Yeah.
some of your podcast content?
Yeah, I'm really easy to find. Just search Rob Greenlee and in any of the, whether it's AI or Google or any of them, and you'll find lots of stuff on me. But I've got a YouTube channel that I have like 4 or 5 different shows that I do in there, and then I have my own personal website too, robgreenlee.com, and I do a bunch of podcasts about podcasting. So I do one called the New Media Show, which has been going on for about 13 years now, and it's a program talking about the podcast industry. So it's just another example of longevity in doing this for a very long time, and trying to be a resource. And I also do another show called Podcast Tips, that is also available out there. It's a more kind of more specific, giving advice around how to do podcasts. And then I've got a bunch of other stuff that I do that I don't need to mention, um, but I have an account on X as well at Rob Greenlee, and I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook and all the platforms too under my name. So you can find me.
Awesome. Thanks. A man of many talents.
Oh, thank you.
Well, so great to talk to you today, Rob. And everyone go check out Rob on X and his on YouTube. And yeah, tune in for more content from him because he clearly is a wealth of knowledge.
All right. Well, thank you, Chelsea.
Thanks. Have a great day.
Okay. Bye.
Bye, Rob.